Good morning, students. Today we'll be continuing the lesson Unit 19 Origin and Evolution of Life with the topic Darwinism. So Darwinism is also called as the theory of natural selection. So here this theory was proposed by Charles Darwin in 1809 till 1882. He was one of the great naturalist and philosopher of 18th century. He was born in England in 1908. It's a short story about his journey. While studying in college, through his friendship with Professor J.S. Henslow, he was fascinated towards nature. At that time, the British Admiralty planned a voyage of exploration for 5 years on a ship named HMS Beagle around South America. Dr. Henslow was asked to nominate a young naturalist for the voyage, and he proposed Darwin was given the opportunity. During his 5 years, that is between 1831 to 1835 voyage, he visited many parts of the world, a number of islands including the Galapagos Island and Pacific Island. Darwin made elaborate observation on nature of the land, plants and animals of the region he visited, and he found the difference between them, the things which is living on land and the animals which is living on the water. He further worked for a period of 20 years to develop the theory of natural selection. So Darwin published his observation and conclusions under the name called Origin of Species in 1859. The book The Darwin demonstrates the fact of evolution, that is called Origin of Species. It elaborates on the theory of natural selection for evolutionary transformation. Then we'll briefly discuss about the principle of Darwinism. The first one is overproduction. Here the living beings have the ability to reproduce more individuals and form their own progeny. That is, all the living beings can having the ability to produce their young ones. Okay, so they have the capacity to multiply in a geometrical manner. So there is a proportion that the individual can produce as many of the young ones. Okay, till it can. This will increase the reproductive potential, leading to overproduction. Okay, so if an individual is producing the more young ones, that will lead to the overproduction. Then the next thing is struggle for existence. So due to overproduction, a geometric ratio of increase in population occurs. So once the population occurs, the space to live and food available for the organism remains the same. Okay, so this creates an intense competition among the organism for food space, leading to struggle. The struggle for existence are of three types. So if an individual is producing an overpopulation, but the space and food for them will be remaining the same, that is not overproducing. So there are three types of struggle for existence, that is intraspecific struggle, interspecific struggle and environmental struggle. So the first one is intraspecific struggle. So it is a competition among the individual of same species, that is intra in the sense, for example, if a group of tiger with their population, they are struggling. Okay, so they have a competition among the same species with a different family. Then interspecific struggle. So in a forest, if a lion and tiger is living, so they are fighting for their shelter and food. Okay, that is called interspecific, the competition between the different species which is living together. Then environmental struggle. Sometimes if the inter and intra goes with the right, then environmental struggle, which leads to extreme heat. The animals may die due to extreme heat or extreme cold, even drought and floods. Okay, then variation. The occurrence of variation is a characteristic feature of all plants and animals. So small variation are important for evolution. As I said, there should be change in all the animals, all the plants and animals. So even the small variations are more important. Okay, so according to Darwin, the favorable variations are useful to the organism and unfavorable variations are harmful or useless to the organism. Then survival of the fittest and natural selection. So during the struggle for existence, the organism, if a lion and tiger is fighting for food and shelter, may the lion wins or the tiger wins. The organism which is overcoming the challenging situation and surviving themselves and adapting to the surrounding environment, the organism which are unable to face the challenges are unfit to survive and disappearing. Okay, either the lion will come for the next generation or the tiger will come for next generation. The one who is losing the fight will disappearing there. Okay, the process of selection of organism with favorable variation is called as natural selection. The organism which is going along with the changes of nature is called as natural selection. Okay, then origin of species. So according to Darwin, new species originates by gradual accumulation of favorable variation for a number of generations. The new species which is developing based on the favorable variation which is matching along with the environmental changes for a number of generations is called as origin of species. Then the next topic is ethnobotany. So ethnobotany is the study of a region's plants and their practical uses through the traditional knowledge of the local culture of people. So ethnobotany is literally studying about a particular region's plant and their practical uses. Either they may have a medicinal uses or some other purposes. Learning thoroughly about a particular plant by their practical or medicinal uses with the usage of traditional knowledge and local culture of a people. The term ethnobotany was coined by J.W. Harshberger in 1895 to include the study of plants used by primitive and aboriginal people. Okay, so the people who are living in a very forest side areas. Through this discipline has existed for ages, ethnobotany emerged as a distinct academic branch of natural sciences in 20th century. Then aspects of ethnobotany. Ethnobotany has relevance with problem of nutrition, healthcare and life support system, faith in plants, cottage industries, economic upliftment, conservation of biodiversity and sustainable use of plant resources. Then importance of ethnobotany. The first point is it provides traditional use of a plant. Okay, through the ethnobotany we can learn about the traditional use of a particular plant. It gives information about certain known and unknown useful plants. Okay, it is also acting like a dictionary which is providing the information about the known as well as the unknown plants. The ethnomedical data will serve as a useful source of information for the chemist, pharmacologist and practitioner of herbal medicine. Okay, so there will be also a medicinal plants that is providing a proper information for the chemist, pharmacologist and practitioners of herbal medicine. So the tribal communities utilize ethnomedicinal plants parts like bark, stem, roots, leaves, flower buds, flowers, fruits, seeds, oils, resins, dyes, gums for the treatment of diseases like diarrhea, fever, headache, diabetes, jaundice, snake bites, leprosy, etc. So the people who live in a typical village area, they won't go for doctor always when they get fever or diarrhea or headache, diabetes. Likewise, they use the traditional plants to treat their disease with themselves. Okay, so these are the importance of ethnobotany. Thank you.